Sometimes you just have to have the guts to go against the logic. Morning, everybody. Great to be with you. Another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, presented by Greenlight Ventures, and of course, brought to you by Bet Online. World Series came to an end last night, and if you were at the point early in the ball game, Flaherty's getting lit up. It looked like batting practice. In fact, I don't think you've seen that many bats make contact since that closing scene with Joe Pesci in Casino. It wasn't actually the last scene of the movie, but it was the last one for Pesci. Remember, they're beating the fuck out of him with baseball bats out there in some field before they throw him in a shallow grave. And that's kind of what it was for Flaherty last night, pitching for the Dodgers. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, Yankees are on cruise control. They did squander a couple of major opportunities to really put the game on ice. And surely the people that had the over in the game were thinking, can somebody just hit a line drive with the bases loaded? As 5-0 turned out to be prohibitive. But if you had had the guts to go ahead and take a shot on the Los Angeles Dodgers down 5-0, I was just texting a friend, in fact, Mike Jones, who's scheduled to join us on the program today, although he's had a couple of issues of late getting on the show. But hopefully we'll talk to Mike, and he sends me a text. He says, how far you think this series is going to go? And there were a lot of statistics about the World Series, talking about teams that were down 3-0. Of 25 situations where a team's been down 3-0 in a World Series, only 4 times now had a team, and that includes the Yankees this year, has a team even gotten to a 5th game. 21 of the 25 situations where this has occurred, it ended up in a sweep. The team that's up 3-0 knocks them out in 4, and boom, World Series is over. So you thought, well, maybe this was going to get competitive. Many people point to Aaron Boone and say that was the reason the Yankees lost game number 1. And maybe you could point to Aaron Boone very directly again, even though there were no necessarily obvious managerial blunders in this ballgame. But when you look at the fundamental play of the New York Yankees all year long, and that's something Yankee fans have been crying about, lousy base running team, poor fielding team. Judge makes a sensational catch to his credit earlier and saves a possibility of a couple of runs, and then drops a routine line drive. You can see his eyes kind of shift, right? And he looks away, and the next thing you know, ball's on the ground. Can't get the runner at second base, who had gone back to the bag at first, thinking surely this soft line drive was going to be caught mid-center field. And next thing you know, you've got a perilous situation. It gets even more tenuous. You get the bad throw to third base by Volpe, and you've got yourself a recipe for disaster. Dodgers tie the game, fall behind again, find a way to come back and grind out a couple of runs. They win it. And not even 30 seconds after the ball game, what's happening? They're asking Aaron Boone, hey, what do you think? Are you going to be back next year? I guess for the money that you make, and we've often said this, that being a failed head coach or manager is probably the most coveted job. If I had to go back and go into my high school yearbook and they ask you the question, hey, what do you want to be? I would say a failed football coach. Make a ton of money and not have to work anymore. That would be great. Just getting to the position once at a decent spot is enough to get you out for a lifetime. Now, if you're trying to get out on other events after losing money in the World Series, and congratulations to our friend Dylan Ross, we've been talking about him, and this is spectacular, and maybe we can get him on the show one day next week, because he is now alive with a $50 5-component parlay ticket for a payoff of $480,000. It's all tied to the Ravens winning the Super Bowl this year, which looked like was becoming more and more realistic and tangible until they ran into Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns last week. But this is a team that does overcome some setbacks. Are they still viable Super Bowl contenders? You would have to say yes. So sitting on a $480,000 ticket after the Dodgers won the World Series. That was tied to UConn in the NCAA championship, Celtics in the NBA, the Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup. Now he's got the Dodgers home, all on one ticket, $50 to win $480,000 after copping the $90,000 he had for his $100 4-component parlay with the Dodgers scoring last night. So congratulations there. Now you can do it too. Basketball fans, it's that time of the year again. The NBA is back. From the opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, the biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all of your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, every breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game itself. If you're not just looking for the NBA. You got action on football, MLB playoffs, NHL, political props, just about anything you can think of. Head to the website today to get in on all the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering, Bet Online. The game starts here. All right, so the World Series is toast. We've had a few picks here on the program, and we have a game tonight in the National Football League that is of great curiosity. As the New York Jets, 2-6 on the season, are favored at home. The last line I looked at was 1.5. 1.5. Jets favored over the 6-2 Houston Texans. Houston Texans have C.J. Stroud, who rose to prominence last year, was sensational, and looks like he's found his niche and is a very viable. Clearly, I mean, compared to Bryce Young and the career that he's having so far and exhibited, number two far outshines number one in that particular draft a couple of years ago. C.J. Stroud looks like he is a viable guy that you can count on take us to a Super Bowl. He's lost a couple of his wide receivers. I'm not sure of the status of Collins for this game tonight. I want to say that he's out, but don't bank on that. You might have to do a little further research. Could be one of those game time decisions. And of course, Stephon Diggs, who came from Buffalo this year and was an added weapon in the arsenal that C.J. Stroud already had a variety of people that he could go to and count on to spark up a very live offense. Stephon Diggs now out for the season. So Houston a little bit compromised in this game. The 6-2 record was achieved with many narrow victories. Now, that's the MO of the National Football League. You're not seeing a ton of blowouts. Look at last week's 1 o'clock block of games, Eastern time, 1 o'clock block, 10 o'clock for you guys out there on the West Coast. And virtually every game came down to the final seconds. You even had score changes, 2 score changes inside the last minute of that Chicago Bears game with the miraculous Hail Mary completion that ended up giving the Washington Commanders a victory in that ball game. The Browns had just taken the lead. Looked like they had iced the ball game. They even get the 2-point conversion to make it even more difficult for Washington to respond. And you're thinking they'll be lucky to get into field goal range with 20 seconds to go. For some reason, I don't know what the Bears coaches were thinking. They said, hey, you know what? Let's let them get this 15-yard chunk and get out of bounds. So they're actually in range to throw that Hail Mary pass. But we've seen many, many blunders in these spots by coaching staffs. And then you get the thing where Stevenson is running around pointing at the crowd, taunting the crowd before he jumps into the pile there, tips the ball up in the air, and ends up giving up the game-winning touchdown by doing something that was clown-like during the course of the play itself. So very difficult in the National Football League to criticize a team that's actually winning, even though they're winning by narrow margins, because the object of the game, as Herm Edwards so eloquently put it one day, is you play to win the game. Now, if you're betting and there are point spreads involved, that's a whole nother thing. You would give little chance, you would think, for the 2-6 Jets to beat a 6-2 team. The way that they've been playing. They've been playing horrible. Their kicker has a gyroscope in the ball, Greg the Leg Zerline. He's been just way off base. And Aaron Rodgers, completely immobile in the pocket, playing behind an offensive line that is a veritable sieve. I mean, they're all exhibiting the Olay block, the fabled lookout block. Look out! And that's the kind of pressure that Aaron Rodgers has been under. So even though he has what appears to be a fine arsenal of offensive weapons, now getting Devontae Adams. They've given this guy every fucking thing that he could possibly want. I think they even have a little dish with psychedelic mushrooms on the sidelines there, right by the Gatorade. Whatever the man wants, they give him. You want a private chef? No problem. Limo to the games? No problem. Whatever it is that he wants. They get him Devontae Adams now, and whatever he needed to be accommodated, except for somebody to protect them. Guys under immense pressure at all times. So can you trust the Jets offensively, even with Garrett Wilson now getting back into the mix? And it would be, I mean, even if they threw in Mike Jones, you wouldn't know that you could trust the Jets offense with that offensive line. So a bit of a mystery here, which is strange. I was talking to Mike, and we welcome Mike Jones into the program here. Good to have you on, Michael. Always a pleasure to see you. And we'll get into your thoughts on the World Series, but I was on this little harangue here about the New York Jets. They're laying 1.5 at home against the Houston Texans tonight. 2-6 versus 6-2. You would think just at first glance that there was a glaring mistake there, that maybe you were reading the line backwards. But
which we've done in the past. So I think
yes,
that. So let me give you my little quick synopsis of this.
yeah,
I saw the line come out. I said, I'm not falling for this. I'm jumping on Houston. It's got to move to Houston favorite. Don't see it. Actually see twos. Then I started to listen to some really good analysts that I take some of their information from. So I would let everybody know it's not always me and being the genius here. My last couple of weeks being over. But
yeah.
he said basically, very interesting enough. He said that he liked the Jets in this spot only because that teams that go off a short week and travel, it's tough. But teams that have never, coaching staffs that haven't been together and been together for a short week are like 30% against the number. And ironically, this is Houston's coaching staff's first Thursday night game. So he likes the Jets in that case because he just feels like it's a really tough adjustment to prep after a tough division game that they played against Indianapolis to go travel, go into New York and play this game. And do we really think the Jets are a 2-6 football team? I don't know. I wasn't sure, but man alive, the line's telling you got to take them, and that's really the call on that my position on that game.
Very, very strange number. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Might be just a big red flag to stay out of it, but
yeah.
makes sense. On the other side of the argument, though, this Ulbrich, who took over as the interim head coach for Salah,
Mm-hmm.
I've talked, and I mentioned this the other day. We were talking to one of our friends, a big time NFL insider, does a great job. He's with a website now called the 33rd Team, which is a Peter King a creation. So they
Mm-hmm.
have very credible guys there. And Jason Cole, we've been talking to him for years about the National Football League. And he said when this change was made, we were talking to him on another show, and he said that Ulbrich is a brick is the key word there. That this guy, I mean, Robert Saleh looks like Lombardi compared to this fucking guy, and we've seen evidence that Ulbrich seems to be somewhat clueless,
Yeah.
as certainly as a game day coach. He's facing far more than he thought he was going to be dealing with when he
Yeah.
was there as the team's defensive coordinator.
Right. One of my plays this week was the Jets. And I'm watching the game going, how can New England stay in the game? Watching them in Europe, coming back. The Jets are desperate. They made these moves, getting guys back. This is the game they got to turn it on. Destroyed him the first week, which make you think all that logic says this is the NFL. You might like New England, right? But I watched the first series when the Jets had the ball. They got a 4th and 3 on the 43 of New England. And you could see when he decided to punt, Rodgers' face shaking his head coming off the field. You have the better personnel. Analytics will tell you that that's a go, 4th and 3 inside the New England territory, and they don't make that move. And I think these are the frustrating things I think Rodgers is going through with the staff. And now you have a guy who's a brand new head coach and has to make these decisions. And like you say, maybe he's not ready for it because Belichick brought up a great point. I was listening to Mannycast Monday night, and Belichick brought up a great point. They took the defensive genius. The Jets' defense wasn't that good till Salah came in, and they took the one coach that really had the one unit that was consistently playing pretty well for them and got rid of him. He felt he shouldn't have been fired, and you're going to look back and say maybe that was a mistake firing him the way they did, but you don't know who's running the ship in New York there, and who's what he's listening to, but
I
that
think
game
he's
also,
listening to birds that are chirping outside of his
yeah,
mansion. But
that's right.
yeah, I mean, this guy makes Rich Kotite look like a welcome sight on
Yeah,
the sideline here so far. Anyway, so very, very weird line.
mm-hmm.
I was talking at the top of the show about the World Series a little bit. I know you want to get into that
Yeah,
about sometimes you just have to go against the logic.
right.
And all logic would have dictated last night after watching a couple of innings of that Yankee Dodger game that there was no chance for the Dodgers to even show any signs of life. They're getting no hit. Cole looks great. He's zeroed in. I mean, have you ever seen a guy look more intense? He looked like fucking Bob Gibson out there.
Right.
And, he's zoned in. He's getting, the Dodgers totally confused on virtually every count. They're hitting cheap fly balls and striking out. And you're up 5-zip. And with an opportunity, they could have been up 10-zip at that point.
Right.
Well,
It,
if they hadn't squandered a bunch of opportunities that loomed very large, and In a million years, you would have never people that had the balls, to just defy all logic and bet the Dodgers at that point, Mike Jones.
Right.
I mean, that's the stuff of which legends
Yeah,
are made,
I
no
mean,
doubt.
and half the sideways guys don't even give you a line on the other side of that because it's so big. They don't
Yeah,
even want to take the side of the bet. So here's my thought. I thought the fifth inning obviously tells all of both teams as you move forward. Judge takes his eyes off the ball. What I was talking to a very good, knowledgeable baseball guy who's concerned about the way the game is being played now. And we go back and forth in fundamentals, and I always think all of these sports, somehow these things are being lost. It's all about hitting a ball hard, hitting a home run. Judge clearly takes his eyes off the ball, looking to make a
yeah.
double play instead of getting it out. If it's a 1-0 game in the seventh, I get that. You can make that mistake. You're trying to make a big play. You're up 5-0. You've got to get the out. That's outs are more important at that point. Then the next play, Volpe goes to third, makes a throw in the dirt. Probably his best play. Maybe he had a shot at second base.
Hey, I don't think he could have gotten any of the other guys. I
Right.
believe that was
So,
his only
so he
play.
makes a bad throw.
Yeah.
But the Gareth Cole not covering first base on a ground ball to Rizzo.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's 3 plays. You gave him 6 outs. And that you can't do that with a team like the Dodgers and the Yankees paid the price.
I thought maybe it was Hideki Arabu and he'd fallen off the mound on the right side there and couldn't get up. And he's just screaming, "I've fallen and I can't get up." And you see this in spring training, right? You're always wondering what the hell do these guys do in spring training, and they play like 30 games, and you see the starting pitchers who they know they're going to be in a rotation, and what are they doing? The guy hits a ground ball to first base, and they jog over there and they cover the bag.
Right.
And that's that. I mean, these baseball drills are archaic, but you're asking yourself, do these guys really need to do this in spring training? But they've been doing it since fucking spring training.
Right.
And then you're in a World Series. You're about to work your way out of an incredible jam, and you don't cover the bag. And he just stopped in his tracks. So
and he's looking like, and then of course his reaction is blaming something like outside of where he should be.
Yeah,
and granted, I think he went through a hellacious inning. He should have been out of the inning with no runs.
No doubt.
And that's what's getting under these guys' skins because I've talked to pitchers. They don't like those errors. That stuff behind them when they feel that they're giving you a chance to win a game. And I just think maybe that's what bothered him. That maybe there was a focus on the Yankees that maybe hasn't been there. That they win games on talent, maybe not on baseball fundamental and focus. I'm trying to figure out how that could even be possible in a World Series to play. I can't remember 3 plays in an inning like that in a World Series.
It looked like the Little League World Series. It really did. Like you're going against Taiwan or something. And 30 seconds after the press conference started with Aaron Boone, somebody asked him, "Are you coming back next year?"
Right.
And what's the guy supposed to say? Well, you know what? I really fucked this thing up.
Yeah, right.
My team was the most unfundamentally sound team that you've ever seen in Major League Baseball history, going back to the '62 Mets. And we couldn't get out of our own way, and I blundered away game number 1. Otherwise, we're right there in this thing. I mean, what's he going to say? But and the bad news for Yankee fans is since he got to the World Series, they probably aren't going to get rid of Aaron Boone. All right, a couple of quick things, and then we want to get into some picks here. I was talking about wild finishes in the National Football League, and I know you had some thoughts about this whole thing with Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, the video, I got the video before. It was interesting. I saw the video. Someone sent it to me prior to NBC showing it at halftime. And Jason Garrett made some comments and all that stuff. And as I thought, I just don't know how a player, and I thought he was taunting the fans, but evidently he was more raising up the Bears fans in that corner.
Yeah.
But I watched the high view sees the guys are 40 yards downfield and his back is still to the play. And I go back to my time with the Giants, working for Bill Parcells, that he would have been cut the next. I don't even think that would even remotely happen in an athlete today. And then I go back and I look at his play because he was so far out of position. He had the ability, because he was chasing the play back, to get higher than anybody, where he should have been around the players and make a straight up leap. He runs like he's running into a rim in basketball and was able to get higher and tip the ball to the guy, to his guy that he was supposed to be guarding, according to when he designed the play. That was his man that he was looking at, that he was supposed to be guarding Brown. And you're supposed to have a couple guys jump and everybody's supposed to guard the guy that's in the receiving, because there were 7 guys guarding 4 there, Jeff. And to me, ironically, I like the Bears a little this week just because the 2 bounce back. I think they got the kid to handle it right. I think Eberflus's press conference was weird. How he let the out pattern go for 13 yards in front of him to give Daniels the shot. I
Yeah.
thought Daniels made a tremendous play. Does it affect the playoff picture down the line? I just think in this way of the world now, with everything being so polarized, this play is going to go down in the record books. When you hear these guys say number one versus number two draft picks, and this is the first way they get a game to end like this. But man, if I was Stevens, I don't know how you sleep at night. I don't know how I could go into the 54-man room and talk to people, because it's all out there. You got to realize you guys are on camera every day. It's not the same life it was we had 40 years ago. We can make all the mistakes in the world 40 years ago and no one would know about it. Today you can't, and these kids are going to have to figure it out, because the game is changing right in front of us.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of like the boxer that motions, "Hey, go ahead, knock me
Yeah,
out," and the guy comes and hits him with the right hand, and next thing you know, he's in the third row.
yeah,
Yeah, you never want to get burned on something like that.
no,
I mean,
and
it's one
even
thing to have a
Richardson, even Richardson tapping out, right? Makes a play, makes a large run, running around, scrambling two
yeah,
plays in a row. He taps his helmet, he comes out of a game on a third down in a 20-10 game with 3 minutes to go in your opposing team's territory. Well, now we're hearing that Flacco's starting for him this week, and the reason is part of it is the tap out. Like, in
yeah.
other words, I've never seen that. I've never seen a quarterback run around for two plays. I mean, you could call a run or stay in the pocket the next play, but to pull yourself out of a game at that point, it's remarkable.
It's weird. I saw an interview with him talking about the demotion, and the guy couldn't have been any more dignified or well grounded about it. I think he's like a really, really good kid.
Yeah,
And does a lot of interesting things
mm-hmm.
that are all good. And he couldn't have been any more dignified about being
That's
benched in favor of a 60-year-old Joe Flacco, who
yeah,
you would think it's odd to say, but that a lot of teams would be happy to have as their backup quarterback,
well,
and now coming in to be the starter. And you can't accept this guy's inaccuracy as a passer. A couple of our handicappers, Professor, very
mm-hmm,
insightful about draft prospects and things like that, because he's
mm-hmm,
so deeply into college football
right.
handicapping, and he couldn't believe that this guy was being so highly regarded. Because
Yes,
he looked at, and people kept saying, well, Josh Allen, doesn't have this high accuracy, and he's emerged, and then look, he's a winning quarterback. But uh, Richardson was so badly off on most of his passes when he was a Gator
right.
that you really had trouble just overlooking all of that and thinking, oh, well, he'll correct that as a pro. So,
Yeah, you,
yeah,
you,
that was
you
kind of weird.
you got coaching staffs that think they can do this. Steichen coming over from Philly. They figure they're going to get their quarterback and get the guy that they want.
Yeah.
Same thing with Trey Lance. The 49ers traded for Trey Lance, who plays
Yes.
in South Dakota State, and he only had 11 starts. He played one start the last year of his game, and that was during the COVID, where they just put the game in there to just get him to play a game so someone could see him. So,
Amazing how scouts could be this blind. Though. It really
yeah,
is, where they have no idea. What we saw from Anthony Richardson as a collegian, as athletic and sensational as he was as a runner, that was a different ball game, and all of these flaws were going to be exacerbated and exposed even more so in the pros. And rarely does a guy overcome that big of a
right.
deficit in terms of passing acumen. All
All right.
right, let's get into some picks. Mike Jones, what are you looking at? We don't have the World Series
Okay,
anymore. We do
so
have that Jet game. I don't know if you want to make that
I
one of the
am.
plays. Okay.
I am gonna go give people a Thursday night pick, and I am actually gonna take the Jets in this game. I just got a sneaky suspicion: the preparation, the travel, the short week, the 6-2-2-6. Everything you've told me points to Houston is why I like the Jets. It's just too obvious. The odds makers always know something. I felt the Jets on Sunday, and I saw some things that I liked and something I didn't like. They moved the ball well. I just think the desperation, the Jets have to win this game, and I'll take my money and throw it on the Jets tonight.
All right. Curious line leading Mike Jones to the Jets, laying 1.5 against the 6-2 Houston Texans. All right. What else? What else do you have for
I'm
the
gonna
fan
pass.
pick?
I've been 1-4 my last Saturday, so I'm gonna move right into Sunday. I think I have a little
Okay.
feeling
Good.
games on Sunday, and I'm gonna start with in Cleveland. Okay, so Cleveland gets guys back. They get Jameis Winston back. They steal a game from Baltimore, so the Cleveland looks better and better and better. But for some reason, I kind of lean a little bit toward the other side of this game with the Chargers. The line is low. I think if Deshaun Watson's playing, it probably would be, a little bit different and probably even more. I think they're giving Cleveland a lot of credit now that they're back in this game and they've corrected a few things. I still remember Jameis Winston being the guy that Tom Brady took over for and took over. And I love how Jameis is handling the media and saying all the right things. I just got a sneaky suspicion the Jim Harbaugh group and the Chargers are going to come in there and get a win. So I'm going to take my money and put it on the Chargers.
Good look at a bounce factor there with Jameis Winston also,
Yeah.
which, as we were talking about, players just resembling their previous tendencies.
Right.
And we know that Jameis Winston was capable of some sensational stuff, but also was equally capable of some of the most bozoic plays that you've ever seen. Was a pick machine that one year to the point where even a 70-year-old Tom Brady would have looked more appealing. And so, yeah, there's also, I think, in your favor there with that selection,
Yep.
the possibility of the bounce where Jameis looks sensational
Right.
last week and comes up with the game-winning throw, and that was a thing of beauty. And maybe bounces back and does a few things that were more typical of the reasons why he wasn't a starter anymore
Yeah.
in the league.
And Harbaugh's style fits in this game. You think it's going to be low scoring, so you're not afraid to lay
Yeah,
a small number. If it's 4 or 5, you're probably not laying it. I know it's West Coast, East Coast. Everybody says early starts. That's always been a negative, but you're just not going to outcoach Harbaugh. And I think he's got his team starting to mold in what he wants. They get the wide receiver Johnson back this week. They get Chalk back. Now they have a little more targets around Hebert. Big quarterback advantage. There are a lot of guys I talk to that are educated that are betting on quarterbacks with a better edge. So you have to give the quarterback edge to the Chargers in this game. So I think I don't like really taking road favorites a lot, but in this case, I feel pretty comfortable taking the Chargers.
all right, we have the Jets laying 1.5 tonight against the Houston Texans. Chargers laying 1.5 against the Jameis Winston-led Cleveland Browns. I want to go for the three-bagger here, Mike Jones.
23-bagger right now.
Right.
I mean, I thought I'll give you a little point on the night game. I like going to the night game. Minnesota, Indianapolis. If we remember the last time they met, I think it was the greatest comeback in the history of football when they were down to 33 or 34 nothing or some number, and they came back and won. So I'm staying away from that with Flacco and the quarterback change, there. But here's a team that I really dislike, the Philadelphia Eagles. But something is going on there, and I think they're going to expose it this week in Jacksonville. I think they had an easy game with the Giants. I think they showed a lot of moxie going into Cincinnati, winning the game the way they did, tight game, and then they pulled away in the second half. Jacksonville just to me doesn't seem like they're there. They lost Christian Kirk. I heard 2 of their wide receivers might not play. And the wide receivers on the other end, Brown and Smith are back. And I really think this is, as a Giant fan, I'm going to give a Giant insight into this game, as crazy as it sounds. Saquon Barkley was a leader in our locker room, a high-level character young man. That's one of the things I didn't like when he left. And I just felt like not only did he miss his ability, but how he got a leadership in the locker room. I think the Eagles are getting that now. I think he's been a bigger part than what we think. I think, and make a crazy prediction, not only the Eagles win and blow him out, but he starts putting himself in the MVP race in his exclamation. Another 100-yard day, bet a prop over him yards if you're interested in this. I think the 7.5 is a steep number. I never like laying over 7, but I see this is where the Eagles start turning. They're getting more into play action. Their offense is starting to change a little rhythm. They're giving different looks. And I'm just not convinced. Jacksonville lost the game with Malik Willis coming in. Green Bay on the road in Jacksonville. That's a game that's tough either way. This one, I don't see that. I think Philly puts it on Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, because they showed signs of life, a couple of years ago when
Right.
Peterson came in and Trevor
Right.
Lawrence looked like he was going to be the real deal. He got a boatload of money. Everybody expects Jacksonville to suddenly turn things around.
Yeah.
And maybe, sometimes you just have to believe what you're seeing, like we've been talking about throughout the show here, that they're just not that good. And so Philadelphia does appear, and things go in short spurts. We know this in the NFL. They seem to be on one of those runs for 4 or 5 games where they're really starting to take off. And you're right in everything you said about Saquon Barkley, spoken very eloquently and no doubt painfully
Yeah.
by a Giant fan of
Yes.
the magnitude that you are.
Yes. It's really, it was tough to watch, but when you watched him gain more yards in any game as a Giant with Philly in the game he came into New York into New Jersey and played, I just watched it and I just saw a different Philly team there. And I didn't think they were going to win last week, thinking Cincinnati was on the rise and Philly's Philly. That was an impressive win to me, and I just think they might keep it rolling. It's a good spot for them, a bad spot for Jacksonville on the road here, and I think I like Philly in the spot.
All right, you're not one of these guys that with your service you give out 100 games a day.
No.
You're old school in the sense that hey, if we can bury the bookie with one game,
Yep.
let's do it, and then let's do it again tomorrow.
That's right.
Where can people get in
Uh,
touch with you and get
pick,
your info?
Picks4profits.com. Yep, we give out our best bet when we have one. Usually it's one a week. We return the money if it loses. So it's something to try, and we look forward to getting all our guys to just spend more time in their families. Only 3 hours a day. We're keeping your attention, and that's where we're going to play it.
And hopefully making a score. Mike, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for
Great.
joining us
Thanks for
here.
having me, Jeff. Have a great
All
day.
right. Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen. He likes the Jets tonight, laying one on a hook. He likes the Chargers laying one on a hook on the road against the Cleveland Browns, and the Philadelphia Eagles rolling right now. He's willing to lay 7 on a hook there against the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, good luck, everybody, with all of your picks and selections, wagers tonight. We were right about the Knicks yesterday. Knicks over the Miami Heat. It was a little bit of a struggle. The Heat have a glaring difficulty so far, anyway, in the 2 games they played at home. A relatively small sample size, but maybe something to watch. They come out ice cold in the third quarter. They've done it 2 games in a row, even being trounced by Detroit in the third quarter of their previous victory. And then against the Knicks last night, it was ugly. So ice cold in the third quarter. Knicks prevailed. We were laying 2 points, I think, 1.5 at post time with the New York Knicks, and they managed to win the game by 9, and that included a late meaningless basket there. That kept the score from being double digits. So hopefully you guys made a score on that. We'll have tomorrow the professor on college football. Professor been on a roll now, so look forward to that. A Degenerate Friday edition of the show, and maybe some selections in the Breeders' Cup as well. So for Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for watching today's edition of Bury Your Bookie.